Hello everyone and welcome back. In this video I'm going to talk to you about the Baker Act and how it may or may not affect your future. So we get a lot of calls from people who are wrongfully detained, and they come to us because perhaps they lost their job, perhaps they lost their income, which resulted in them losing their place to live and their car and their reputation and all of these things. And they call us and they say, hey, number one, can we sue? Well, you know from all the other videos I've talked about that issue, the general answer is no. Okay, unless you've been physically injured, you cannot sue the facility under state law. They're immune because they're an agent of the state and they enjoy sovereign immunity as most state actors do. And they say, well, what about expunging the record? Well, no, you can't do that either. Well, what do you mean? Well, look, first of all, these are confidential proceedings. They're supposed to be confidential. Now, most privileges of confidentiality, even attorney-client, doctor-patient, those types of privileges, they're not absolute. And what that means is there are times when, if you, for instance, let me give an example. A client comes in to meet with me and they're threatening to kill their wife, and I have a well-founded belief that they're actually going to do it. I can violate privilege and call the cops and say, this guy's about to kill his wife. And there are also other circumstances. For instance, when a therapist is Baker acting a patient, the patient's in there saying, I'm going to kill myself, and the therapist has a well-founded belief that that's actually going to take place. They pick up the phone, they call 911, and the police come and take the person. That's a violation of privilege. And so the whole idea that this thing is confidential and it's going to remain confidential, I think is a little bit of a misnomer, because no confidentiality is absolute. Now, people are calling us and saying, well, I want to expunge, and the reason I want to expunge is because it could affect my future, my reputation. And while we cannot expunge, I think in my mind, I think it would be better if you fought. In other words, if you hired a lawyer to get you out. At least that way, if somebody says, well, you Baker acted, you have an argument to say, yeah, you know what, I got illegally Baker acted. I hired a lawyer and they got me out because I was being held illegally, as opposed to you don't hire a lawyer and you just wait and wait and wait and wait, days, weeks, months, until you're finally released. And then this big thing is out there and someone says, oh, I heard you got Baker acted. How long did they hold you for? I don't know. I sat there for a month, 45 days, 60 days. In fact, the facility filed to keep me and they got a court order to keep me. And so I think just if you are worried about what your future looks like, and I can't tell you how the Baker Act is going to affect your future, I simply don't have a crystal ball. But personally, having had my own family member Baker acted and being there when it all went down, I think if you're worried about what the future looks like, your reputation in the community, I think you're better off at least having fought to get out and, had either the facility capitulate because you were illegally detained, or had a judge rule on the case and saying, guess what, the facility illegally detained you, than just sitting back and hoping and praying and wishing that at some point the door will open and you can walk out. Because at that point, frankly, if you were illegally detained and you believed you were illegally detained, some people might say, well, then you would have fought to get out. The fact that you didn't tells me perhaps you do have a mental health issue, and we should consider whether or not we want to work with you. And again, I'm not saying that's right. I'm just telling you how in the real world this stuff works. So yeah, as I've said in other videos, if you get illegally detained, in fact, if you get detained at all and you don't believe you should be there, you got to fight to get out, and you got to fight to get out straight away, not wait. Because when you wait, either you get stuck for a period of time and you've fallen in this black hole, which is the state's mental health system, or they file to keep you and the judge orders you to be detained for an extended period of time. Just not a good outcome for you. I wish I could expunge these things. Unfortunately, there's just no process. So I think this is probably the best alternative. Fight to get out. Fight to get out. Anyway, I hope that that explains that issue. I'd love a thumbs up. If you could subscribe to the channel, I'd be grateful. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.